Today, we have a wonderful guest who has overcome reoccurring sexual abuse that began at age 3. Join us today as Kristina takes us through the pivotal times of her life and, most importantly, how she overcame them all. Can you begin by introducing yourself and telling us a bit about what you do?
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So, again, you guys see my name is Kristina Jones. I am originally from Florida, St. Petersburg, Florida, and I relocated to Chicago, Illinois, with my wonderful husband. I've been here now for 6 years. um, what I do or what I've been doing is I've been sharing my testimony via like spoken word and poetry. I love to write. I've been writing since I was a little girl, and I remember there was a elementary school teacher who told me how much she loved my writing because I just like I don't know. I just believe it's definitely a gift from God. So I love to tell my testimony or tell my story through poetry. I recently released some books. We do have a book titled Suppressed Wounds, Redemption and Recovery, a children's book, Did You Know That God Made You Special? And most recently, a workbook for women who are dealing with or also maybe overcoming childhood and even adulthood sexual trauma. And that book is titled Broken Girl Whole Woman. And we have a virtual event that will be coming up in May. So May 8th, 6-week workshop, hands-on. We're going to be in Zoom and we're going to walk through this trauma together. So that's pretty much what I'm doing now. Yeah, Marcella.
Sounds incredible, incredible, Christina. Okay, wow. Well, can you take us back to the beginning? How did this journey start for you? How did you come to where you are today?
How did I get to where I am today? I'll say God. um, ah, so the beginning of my journey, when I talk about a lot of the sexual trauma and childhood trauma and things like that, for me, I remember being touched as early as age 3, and then it was age 4, and then age 5, and then even at age 5, I started getting high at age 5 using the aerosol, like the aerosol air fresheners. And I think that I was possibly subconsciously trying to escape my female cousin who was I would say molesting me or sexually abusing me. And even at that age, I had started watching pornography. Like it's crazy, crazy stuff. So then it was like age 5 and then age 6, and it almost felt like I was this target for sexual exploitation, rather. And that led me into a life of sexual promiscuity at age 14. Now, age 15 is when I surrendered my life to the Lord. I grew up in the church. I want to say age 8 is probably when I started, or maybe age 7 or age 8 when I started going to church and with my parents. But I never had a relationship with God until I believe age 15. And that was when the eyes of my heart was open to understanding that what I was doing wasn't just hurting myself or hurting my parents, but I was also breaking God's heart. And yeah, I could share a spoken word and I can feed off of that if you would like me to do that.
Yep. However you decide to flow, let's go.
All right, awesome. So, okay, thinking which one I want to do. Okay, so my heart hurt for these girls out here in the streets, the ones who be having sex with multiple dope boys and gangsters who be packing heat. I remember when that girl was me. I was the girl in the alley, trap houses, crack houses, and back seats. And I was never tired of getting freaky in between the sheets. But in his time and grace, God chose me. I still mess up at times, but God still hears, loves, and forgives me. Each morning I wake up, new mercies I see. My motivation is to please God even when it's hard. So now I have a desire to acquire unending fire to rescue those girls who I was once like. So from this moment, I'm taking the hype from my flesh to suppress the inner me, because I know that the plan that the Lord has for me are greater than the plans that I have for myself. To the Lord, I'm asking him to help me because I can't take this anymore, no longer in my whore. So ready or not, by way of the Holy Spirit, I'm bringing clear sight to the blind and knowledge to the dumb of God's only and begotten Son. So that first piece, is talking about how I was out there in the streets at age 14. But like I said, that life of promiscuity came from the sexual abuse, the sexual molestation and things as such. Being touched again, I say like the first time, I remember telling my mom that I was burning. I was burning really, really bad in my private areas. And let me just say this about my mother. I love my mom and I am so grateful for her, because it's like she's the only person that actually believed me. You know, I hear so many stories from what different women, even guys, or that'll say, you know, my mom never believed me, or she stayed with this person and did this and did that. But my mom, no, my mom always believed me, and I'm so grateful for her. I'm grateful for God just blessing me with a mother that I do have. When I did do, I think you say you had seen the interview I did with, I think, Untold Stories, and there were so many negative comments about my mom. You know, I'm quite sure that if my mom knew from the beginning certain aspects of my life, as far as me being molested and sexually abused, that she would have intervened a long time. Now, I do mention in my book where, you know, I say like I had went years without my mom knowing anything about, well, a lot of the things that had been happening to me after the first two men who had molested me at age 4 and at age 3. So the molestation by my cousin, my female cousin, that lasted for maybe like 2 years or so. But I didn't tell my mom about that incident until I was about 13, you know. And my mom, she confronted her. And this particular cousin, one night, she ended up picking me up from work. I started working at McDonald's when I was 15. And I remember she picked me up one night, and in the car, I remember her saying to me, well, first she was telling me how much she loved this piece that I wrote. And this piece was titled Encouragement to All Young Women Trying to Find Themselves. I wrote that in high school when I was 16. And my cousin was just telling me, she was like, you know, I really enjoyed that piece that you wrote. And then that led to her asking me to forgive her for what she did to me when we were younger. I was about 5 and she was about maybe 12 or 13. So here is an issue of not just incest, we'll call it what it is, but also homosexuality. And that entered my life at that point. And I had struggled with my sexual preferences and things as such at that age. Um, because of that. However, to fast forward to age 16, when she came to pick me up from work one night, and I was surprised. I'm like, why is she here picking me up? Like that was crazy to me. Like it wasn't weird. It's just like my parents were the ones always picking me up from work. So when she picked me up and she told me she read the letter, not the letter, but well, the encouragement to all young women trying to find themselves, and again, that's when she apologized and asked me to forgive her. And like we're sitting there in the car and I'm like boohoo crying. She's boohoo crying. And I was like, I forgive you, you know, because we have to think about this, you know, with her being about 12 or 13-ish and me being 5, I can only imagine what type of things may have happened to her when she might have been my age. And then years later, I did discover that something had happened to her. So if she watches this, you know, I want her to know that we can talk about that too. You know, a lot of people was also saying in the comment section of that video that was recorded, like, how could you forgive her? How could you do this? How could, you know? it's me understanding the concept of radical acceptance. It's not saying, oh, I approve of what she did, I agree with what she did. It's me trying to look at it from a different perspective. Just like with what the very first person that I reported to my mom who had touched me, I had to look at it from that perspective as well, because that was a relative, that was a very close relative. And again, that's not approving or saying that it was right. I had to get to a place where I have to say, okay, I have to get on my healing journey. So my encouragement to others, again, it was not okay. None of it was ever okay. Whatever abuse you went through, whether it was physical, sexual, emotional, whatever it is, that's not okay. But what is okay is you finding out a better way to move on with your life, so that you can start your healing journey. Because that moment sitting in the car with my cousin and both of us boohoo crying together was very transformational, you know. And then I think she, like maybe 2 or 3 other times, she asked me to forgive her again. I'm like, girl, I forgive you. I love you. you know. We were kids. We were kids. Was that right? No, it was not. You know. But yeah. I pray that she's well, because a lot of people can't deal with that. Whether it happened to them or whether they were the ones victimizing other people. It was a very it's a very sick and twisted game, and the longer we hold on to those things, the more we suppress it and suppress it and suppress it, we can become sick. um with this being, I think it's like National Sexual Assault Survivor Month or something like that. Also Autism Month, along with National Poetry Month or something. There's so many different things here in the States. But I think it's appropriate to talk about it, to talk about the different things that has transpired in our lives so that we can help others. And I truly do believe that transparency transforms the lives of others. And I got transforms the lives of others. And I got that from one of my best friends, Brittany Jackson, who helped to co-edit my book along with my husband. And Brittany has a letter in there to all young women who may have dealt with childhood and adulthood sexual trauma.
Thank you for your transparency, Kristina. I definitely agree that forgiveness is fundamental when it comes to healing trauma. What tips can you give to someone who may be struggling to forgive a perpetrator who isn't as remorseful or repentant as your cousin?
Mm. I would say the first step would be acknowledging that it happened, because we can't change anything if we don't accept it. Well, we first acknowledge it, then address it, and then accept it. So acknowledge it, address it, and then accept it for what it was. That doesn't mean, again, that's not taking the perpetrator out of the hot seat per se, but that's helping you get to where you need to be at in your life. I would also suggest like not telling that person, different people are at different stages in their lives. Because what I did, and let me kind of backtrack a little bit. Age 13, I met this guy. He was actually a friend, well, in-law of a family member of mine. And he happened to be visiting the state where my relative was at, or visiting themselves, because my part of my family, I'm trying to do this in a way that's kind of not disclosing. So I have these relatives. They were stationed in the military, and we were stationed in the military. Sometimes you may be sent to live, out of the country. And these individuals, they lived out of the country. So when they came over to the States, they were in Florida, came to Florida to visit most of the family, and their in-laws came from a different state to visit our family. And we decided to go to a theme park together. This particular theme park was Busch Gardens in Tampa, Florida. And so while we were there, this person, he took a liking into me. I was 13 at the time, and he was probably about 19 or 20. And he had asked me to ask my parents if we could come back. My sister and I could come back to the hotel where he and his family were lodging at. So I was like, okay, I'll let my mom know and see if it's okay. So my mom said it was okay, and then he asked if it would be okay if I rode back in the car with them because we carpooled and some of us drove different cars. So I was like, yeah, I asked because we're all going to the hotel anyway. So while I was in the car, this particular in-law of a family member was sitting in the passenger seat. Their parent was sitting in the driver's seat. And he kept looking back at me because I was sitting behind the driver's seat. And he was like asking me, can I reveal my chest to him and stuff like that? And I'm like, no. Like, dude, like we're in the car and your mom is driving. But anyway, we got to the hotel. My mom was able to go get our swimsuits and everything like that. So we got changed and everything, went down to the pool. He took us because he was older than us. And in the pool is where the fondling and touching and different things began. Then he had asked me to come to the bathroom with him. So we went to the bathroom. Nothing happened in the bathroom. Like something was about to happen, but I believe that God had allowed someone to knock on the bathroom door. So when they did that, everything stopped. However, we continued to communicate with each other. My parents and his people, they didn't see anything wrong with us communicating with each other because like I think they seen it as more so like, oh, well, he could be like a big play cousin or something like that, but not thinking anything sexual. So even though we had never went all the way with sex or anything like that, we would communicate a lot about it. He would ask me to call him at certain times of the night. So I did that, and I thought that I was in a relationship with him. So what I was doing was I started hiding the phone bills because back in the day we had a house phone. We didn't have cell phones like everybody uses a cell phone now, but we had a house phone, so I would hide the phone bills because I didn't want my parents to know that I was making these long distance phone calls. But found out later on we had free long distance, just all these different things I'm trying to hide. So my parents found out that he and I were in a relationship. And the way they found out was because at this time I was 13, it was the summertime. I was volunteering at a local hospital. And at this local hospital, I had access to envelopes and the mail room. So I was like, I'm going to write him this letter and then I'm going to send it. Because he told me, he was like, call me every night. What else he would say? He would just tell me all these things he wanted to do with me. And again, he was, I want to say 19 or 20 at the time. He was working. I remember he was working at a bank. So he knew that he shouldn't have been talking to a 13-year-old girl. So that's not appropriate. However, and I know I'm sharing a lot, but I'm trying to bring home this point about forgiveness. So I had a letter, wrote the letter, put it in my purse. My parents went through my purse. My mom was like, what the heck is this? Like, why you got a letter addressed to this person? And she read the letter, very, very sexually explicit letter. And my mom questioned me. She said, did we have sex? I said, no, we didn't have sex. But these are certain things that happened. My mom immediately, she put me on birth control at that particular time. And they called his parents and called him and asked him did anything happen between us, and he denied it. He said nothing ever happened. He said that I was crazy, I was delusional. He said that I was calling him like I lived there. Like he said all these things, and here it is me thinking that I'm finally in this relationship with this guy that I thought he loved me because he said all these the good things, but again, to any teenagers that are that's watching this, if you're 12, 11, 12, 13, maybe even 10, and you have a 19 or 20-year-old or anyone, let's say 15 and older, and you're a child like that, it's not appropriate. Get help, talk to an adult, talk to someone at your school, go to a local hospital, talk to somebody because it's not appropriate. So anyway, when he said that to my mom, and I could hear them on the phone talking, and him saying like he just completely denying everything. Well, his father was speaking on his behalf and was saying that this particular person, he denied ever doing anything with me. He said he thought that I was crazy. He said that I just kept calling him and things like that, even though he was the one telling me to call him. So when he said those things, it broke my heart because I thought again that we were in a relationship. I thought that he loved me, but that was not the case. So what I did was, me being 13, this being the summertime, my birthday's in August. I'm an August baby. So I turned 14 and then I entered into high school, the ninth grade. And that is when my life got really, really wild. And I decided that I wanted to have a boyfriend. So what I did was I said, you know what? I'm going to sneak out the house and I'm going to find me a boyfriend. My stepfather, which I don't like calling him my stepfather, I like calling him my father because he raised me. He worked at night, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. My mom, she went to bed early. You know, she still go to bed early, like 9 o'clock. She's knocked out. So I decided again, I was going to go find me a boyfriend. I snuck out the house and my life changed drastically from that point because here it is, 14-year-old girl out in the streets late at night trying to find love, literally looking for love in all the wrong places. And that led me into a life of sexual promiscuity that also led me into an addictive behavior. And I call it in my book hypersexuality, you know. And to fast forward to about a year and a half ago, I happened to reach out to this individual, the one that I thought I was in a relationship with. And I was like, hey, I'm letting you know that I forgive you. I wrote a book. He asked, could he read the chapter that he was in? Because I did tell him that I wrote about our situation, but I didn't put any names in there. And he read it. And it was almost like he was kind of like aroused by it and excited that I would actually say that. And then on top of that, he asked me, could I add more information in the book about the situation, which I thought that was completely inappropriate. So to get back to forgiveness, you don't have to let that person know that you forgive them. You forgive them and you move forward with your life the best that you can, because everybody is not on that healing journey. Everyone may not feel like they need help. And obviously this person was not in a level of maturity to accept me saying to him, hey, I forgive you, because his rebuttal or his response to me was, oh, well, I forgive you for you telling your parents whatever you had to do to stay out of trouble. And I was like, what? I'm just saying, dude, I forgive you. I'm letting this go, you know. But it almost took me down a road that I did not need to go. And that's why it's important that you also have accountability and support. You know, you don't have to do this by yourself. Now, if you don't have a big family or something like that, you know, maybe join a Facebook group, look on YouTube, find videos about support, you know, how to forgive, or how to live your life after being sexually assaulted. Because when a person does that to you, whether it's childhood molestation or if it's adulthood where you get raped or anything like that, they're taking a piece of you. They take a part of you. All the different sex partners I had, a piece of me left my body, even though I felt like I was in control, and I was not. I was not. But that's why forgiveness is very, very, very important, because this guy, he wasn't remorseful at all. And then he even took in it and he blamed me. And I dealt with a lot of victim blaming and victim shaming and different things. And even people very close to me called me and was like, hey, I'm not going to buy your book. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Because someone's going to buy it, someone's going to read it, and someone will be helped. I hope I answered your question, Marcella.
Absolutely, Christina. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hypersexuality is a form of self harm. This was quoted in your book, Suppressed Wounds, Redemption and Recovery.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is often the case for children and adults who have been sexually violated. How did you overcome this and how did you end this cycle?
Wow. So age 14, um, when I decided I wanted to walk out the house and look for a boyfriend, it was, man, listen, it was very it was very tough. I didn't do it by myself. I did not overcome that, some people say a promiscuous spirit or whatever, but the hypersexuality, it didn't just stop overnight. There was a particular incident because every night when my dad went to work, because he only worked like maybe like 4 times out the week or so. So whenever he go to work, I'll sneak out. I'll be outside from 11 p.m. until 5 o'clock in the morning. By the time I get home, I'll just wash up and go to school. Like I was literally addicted to it. It was an addiction. I felt like there was a force greater than myself that like took over my body, and to some people it may sound comical, but I'll just say this: we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and wickedness in high places. Like there was even a point where I don't even remember like really looking at myself or anything like that in the mirror. The other crazy part about all of this, here it is, I'm sneaking out, having sex with multiple men. I would say like some nights, 2 nights, some nights, 20, just random guys that I would run into. Some of them were random and some of them were not new. Some of them were guys from the very first time, the very first experience I had. And then they would call other guys. And then it went from me being in the back seat of a Cutlass, an Oldsmobile Cutlass, dark tinted windows in front of a freaking park. It went from that to them directing me to the garage of one of the homeboys, one of their houses. And I would be in the bathroom in the garage, and then guys would just line up and take their turn. And again, the mentality that I had was that I was in control. I could please them, so that made me in control. However, I truly believe that the first man I actually gave my body to was my husband, to be completely honest. So, one particular night when I was out there walking the streets, this guy came up to me. I think he was a homeless guy because I usually see him at the corner store and he'd be drinking or whatever. And this particular night, it might have been about 2 o'clock in the morning. I know it was really late. And he tried to force himself on me. We were in the middle of the street, like literally in the middle of the street, and there were cars that were passing us. Not too many cars because it was in the middle of the night. And I remember this one particular car that passed us and slowed down. And I remember tapping on his windshield and I'm saying, like, help me, please, please help me. While this homeless drunk man is like groping me and pulling me, and he done pulled his private parts out. Like it was a wild night. And the person in the car, he just drove off. He did like this and drove off. Finally, someone was like, hey man, leave that girl alone. So the guy, he released me, and he was like, hey, I didn't hurt you, okay? But at this point I'm crying, I'm sweating. I picked up a brick, just in case if he tried to come at me again and I could like bust him in the head with it. However, even in that addiction that I had, the hypersexuality type of addiction or promiscuous addiction or whatever, I didn't get my fix, so I just continued to walk in the neighborhood. Finally, some guys pulled up. One of the guys, I previously had known him. I had played basketball with him at the local park. And he was like, hey, what you doing? You want to come with us? I was like, yeah. So I went off, had sex with them. They dropped me off in the same area. Then I walked back home. That night, when I got back home, I decided, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to walk the streets anymore. I'm not going to do any of that. And And I tried for a good 2 weeks. The crazy thing about this as well is that I lived a double life. You know, in church, parents had us in different extracurricular activities. One of those extracurricular activities was an abstinence program. Here it is, I'm in an abstinence program in the daytime, but walking the streets at night. The abstinence program, they held the program at the same park that I met the guys at, the same park that I would have sex with some of these guys at night. So that's how I definitely feel like the enemy had so much control over me, over my life. And I also feel like he wanted me to die. Like that's the enemy job. The enemy's job is to kill, steal, and destroy. You know, he already know the outcome of his life. So he's trying his hardest to get us who believe God to be distracted by the pain of our past, to be distracted by people doing things to us and harming us and the things that's going on in the world and around us. But anyway, let me go back. Um, so this particular night, I was like, no, I'm not gonna do it. So for 2 weeks, didn't sneak out the house. After 2 weeks, I remember laying in my bed and I heard a knock at my window. I looked out the window and it was the first set of guys that I had sex with when I first snuck out the house. And keep in mind too, this was my first sexual experience when I walked outside that night and decided I'm going to find a boyfriend. And that first sexual experience, or me losing my virginity, was to 1, 2, 3. I think there were five different men. These are five different grown men, you know. Um, but anyway, laying in my bed, I heard a knock. I looked out the window, and again, it was the first set of guys that I had been involved with, and the guys who led me from the cutlass to the garage bathroom. They were standing outside asking me if I could let them in. And I'm like, nah. Like I was bold enough to sneak out the house, but I was not bold enough to actually bring people in, sneak people into my parents' house. But one of the guys, he was like, well, just open the window, open the window. So I was like, okay, open the window. He was able to remove the screen. And then that started a whole nother span of me having sex with multiple guys again, where they were coming inside and me having sex with them and then them leaving. And then that was the routine. But till this day, I don't even know how they found out exactly like which window to knock on. I don't know if they knocked on all the windows of a house and happened to find mine, but I don't know. So eventually my parents, they found out. It was a neighbor who was related to my stepdad, who I had eventually ended up having sex with, who told my stepdad that these guys were saying all these things about me, saying that I was out there really bad in the streets and stuff like that. My parents didn't want to believe them because, I pretended well. I pretended well. I had a mask that everything was fine. I was excelling in school. I was I was one of the best people in the abstinence program. And I would literally go to the abstinence program meetings, and the guys that I would have sex with that night, they would come and like knock on the window or knock on the door and try to wave me down so that they can let me know, hey, come back tonight. So when my parents found out, what they did was they set me up. They set me up, which is a really good thing. I thank God for that. One particular night where I was just waiting for the guys to come back again to knock on the window so I can bring them inside. And I wasn't thinking about my mom being asleep in the other room, my sisters being in the other room, because these were big time drug dealers. These were drug dealers, drug users, the grown men. Like, so this is another like side note. Like if like ladies, young girls, if there's somebody like teenage girls, If there's somebody trying to sneak into your house and they got to come through the window, sneaking, period, like, think about it. Like, this isn't the person that you should be with. It, not at all. Because whoever God has for you, and whoever loves you for real, like for real, they will meet your parent, your guardian, or whomever, and to say, and let their intentions be known that way. But anyway, one particular night while I was waiting, my mom ended up coming into my room. And I'm just like, it's after 11 o'clock. Why is my mom coming in my room? And she asked me to come out to the living room. I noticed that the lights were on and my dad was home when he usually go to work. So I guess he pretended like he was going to go to work. And I don't even know where he parked his truck at, because he always parked in the backyard. So I guess that's how the guys knew that my dad wasn't home, because his truck wasn't there. So I came in the living room. My parents asked me like what was going on, was I having sex and different things and such. And I told them, yeah. At first I wanted to lie, but I had to be honest with them. And that's another step with forgiveness. You just be honest about what you're feeling. Even if you just express that to God and you're like, God, I am hurting. God, I don't know how to forgive. God, can you please give me the strength? Or if you're talking with someone and just saying, like, can you help me with this? What are some practical ways? Just like how you asked Marcella. So that particular night, like, I just believe that God was protecting me. He was protecting me by allowing my parents to be proactive at that point. And that particular night, while we're sitting in the living room and they're them questioning me and stuff like that, I remember another knock. It was a knock at the front door this time, but this was the actual police, St. Petersburg Police Department. They came in and then they took a statement from me, and then my parents had ended up taking me to uh, the local health department, where they had something called SAVE. That's SAVE. Now, I don't know if they have this in the UK, but I know they have this here in the States. I know they have that here, like in Florida as well. It's called SAVE. The acronym is for Sexual Assault Victims Examination. So if you've been sexually assaulted, or you had sex, even if you said no, but then you consented, your body consented to it, no means no. You can get that examination done. So I don't know if you want to look that up in your area, ladies, wherever you're watching this and you've been violated, please look that up. SAVE. And my parents, they got me counseling, but that wasn't working because I wasn't truthful, I wasn't honest. So part of that overcoming the hypersexuality is, again, being honest and being vulnerable, and not being afraid to acknowledge and address what it is, because we can't change what we don't acknowledge. Um, and no matter what my parents tried to do, like they wanted to put me into military school, but my parents, they didn't have the money to afford that. I had a nameplate necklace. My mom took that away. So many things they tried to take away. They took my door down. They put burglar bars on the windows in our home. They changed out the deadbolts for the doors so that it could only be unlocked from the inside, versus so instead of you just turning the lock, you have to actually use a key to unlock from the inside, and then they will hide the key. But I think all that did was just kind of fuel my fire even more, until, like I said, age 15 is when I had that encounter with God. And I remember sitting in my bedroom, and a song was playing, and the lyrics are like, Lord, have your way, or something. And I was overcome and overwhelmed with so many different emotions. And at that moment, again, that's when I was like, okay, the things that I'm doing is not just hurting myself or my parents or my family, but I'm breaking God's heart, and I didn't want to do that. Now, after that, I had abstained from sex for a year, and I was even sharing with my peers, like saying, hey, don't do it, don't have sex, these are the consequences, and all these different things. And I remember speaking at the teens retreat at age 15, and I wrote a poem titled Lord, I Need You. And I was still trying to encourage the youth, like, don't make the same mistakes that I made. And, you know, however, I think about the scripture that states, he who thinks he stand, take heed lest he fall. And that's when I was tempted. I was tempted and I fell into temptation. Started having sex with, a boy at school, and then it was another boy. And then that desire came back again. But this time when I tried to go out into the streets, I tried to go back out like I was before at age 14, but it just felt different. The conviction of the Holy Spirit was so strong upon me. And I'm like, oh, I want to do this so bad, but I'm like, but I'm hurting God. I want to do it, but I'm hurting God. I want to do it. So I would say God has been the source of my strength and of my comfort and of the self-control in that aspect, because like after that, then it was like I went another year of abstaining, and then I went 4 years of abstaining, and then I met this guy, and he told me that he was supposed to be my husband. And I was like saying, well, God didn't tell me that. So that's another snippet. If God hasn't revealed to you that this is who he has for you, you don't have to stay in a relationship.
The biblical overtones throughout your book really resonates with me.
Okay.
And there's a quote in there where you said, understanding that we fight an invisible war, which you touched on briefly. Do you feel that you've won that war now?
I would say that I've been given the tools to overcome. Now, are there still temptations and things that come? Yes. And I'll tell you that that's why it's important to have accountability. You know, people that you can talk to, talking to God and being raw about your emotions and about your feelings. Because, like, although we are set apart, there's still temptations that come. I think about the one scripture about Jesus and this person coming up to him. It was like a rich young ruler, and him saying to Jesus, like, I want to follow you. I want to, like, come on, I want to follow you. I want to do what you're doing. And Jesus was like, okay, well, sell all you have, get everything you have, get rid of it, and then you come follow me. But the rich young ruler, oh, no, no, no. Well, let me kind of go back a little bit. He was like, good teacher, good teacher. And Jesus was like, there's no one good except the Father. And I think that Jesus was saying that because although Jesus, what we believe as Christians is that Jesus is 100% man and 100% God. And I think because he was still in the flesh, he knew that there's nothing good in the flesh. There's nothing that's that good, nothing good dwells there. So again, the accountability. Um, with my husband, I'm just so grateful for him because he holds me accountable to certain things. Um, I have best friends that I can talk to because my husband, of course, that's not in this book, Suppressed Wounds, but my husband had became very sick 2 years after we got married. So it's been about 4 years now that he's recovering. However, I felt like tempted. There was temptation all around me to uh, have sex with other people while being married. Some people think, oh, you get married and then that's it. But, sometimes marriage, it will pull out things in you that you thought you've conquered or you've overcome. But what it really does is it just puts up a mirror and it shows you yourself. So getting through those situations, it hadn't been easy. And no, I didn't cheat on my husband. I didn't sleep with nobody or anything like that. But like when he became sick, like there were different people in our neighborhood. We had a neighbor like literally across the hall that came to me, was like offering to massage me. And then there was different guys. Another guy was saying poetry to me. Like it's stuff that you're like, what the heck? What the heck is this, man? But the more we avoid those situations, not just avoid it, but the more we deal with those situations head on and we talk about it, the more the enemy will be exposed. Because again, we do wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and wickedness in high places. Like there's a whole spiritual world that's working around us. You know, you have the kingdom of darkness and you have the kingdom of light. And then we have our own conscious, you know, our own mind. And we have to battle these things, you know. I have to fight against the temptations of pornography, fight against the temptations of not stepping out on my husband. And the way that I fight those things is I talk about it. You know, there's a wonderful book by an author named Alice Taylor. That's Alice. Last name is Taylor, Taylor. And she wrote a book. It's titled Restored. And it's a book for women overcoming pornography. Because sometimes we can say, you know, we can give up one vice and then pick up another. And I'm just so grateful for that book because when you think, some people think, oh well, pornography is a man's issue. Like, nah, it's females too that may struggle with that. And sometimes what we'll do is say, well, you know what, well, this isn't as bad as that, or I'm doing this just to release pressure or tension or whatever it is. But whatever it is that you run to first, that becomes your idol, you know, whatever it is. And I remember even more transparent moment for me, when my husband was like in the early stages of being sick. I didn't understand it, you know. I even called myself drinking. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna drink this. I was trying to find comfort in something that would only provide me with temporary comfort. And once I was able to talk to somebody about it and say, well, this is what I tried. I tried to get drunk as a Christian, as a believer, and you know, walking with the Lord for 20 years, a little over 20 years now, you know, it doesn't mean that I am immune to sin. I am immune to temptation. I have to deny myself daily, sometimes moment by moment, you know, picking up the phone and talking to someone, or writing things down, writing a book, writing poetry, doing a journal. Like, yeah. And again, I hope I answered your question because I feel like I'm like,
Absolutely. No, you have. They are all useful tools. And lastly, Kristina, what is one message that you would like to leave for anyone listening today?
one message I would like to leave. But I would like to close with a spoken word piece. So
Oh, yes.
it's a lot of words in there, but my couple words that I want to leave is, one, there's no safety in forced secrecy. So if you feel like you have to keep something a secret, you know, but you kind of feel bad about it, there's no safety there. Now, granted, when we share certain things with certain individuals, and of course you like, hey, don't be disclosing my business out there, you know, that's different because that you found a safe space there. But if you're in a situation, whether it's teenagers that's watching this, kids might, I don't know how they might watch it, but if they happen to watch this, if you're around someone and they keep saying, oh, this is our little secret, this is our little secret, don't tell anybody, that's a red flag. Tell someone, tell an adult, tell someone that you trust, even someone at school. If a teenage girl or boy, somebody watching this, you're in high school or whatever, and somebody's touching you, because a lot of the different things happen to me in school, middle school, high school, a whole lot in high school. Go talk to somebody. You know, I don't care if they say you a snitch, but again, there's no safety in forced secrecy. And the other thing is there's power in your voice. Don't let anybody take that away from you. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. And then don't believe your thoughts when you're angry. When you're angry, don't try to believe that. And those are my words.
Beautiful. Well, once again, thank you for your time, your honesty, and determination, Kristina. Not only have you transformed your own life, but countless others globally. May
Yeah.
you continue to touch the hearts and souls of whoever needs to hear your story to initiate healing and live their true purpose, regardless or whatever they have endured. And on that note, I'll allow you to close with your spoken words.
All right, I'll close it out.
Thank you.
Beaten, battered, tattered and bruised, touched by him, then her, then him, pushed down, strapped down, trampled on, spit on by the evil spirits of perversion, told to keep quiet. Shh. Never saying a word, too afraid to let your voice be heard. What will you say? Will you speak, scream, or cry? Will people listen or pass you by? Or will this suppressed wound eat away at you until you die with no reply, no I'm sorries, or will you forgive me? This wound has festered way too long. You're not alone, you are strong. Ignore those voices in your head that keep telling you that you're better off dead. Keep living, keep breathing, keep rising, keep shining. Who hurt you will not win. Don't give up or give in. You got this. Today is your day to be strong. Know that what they did to you was wrong. Turn off that sad song and let's listen to "And Happy Feelings" by Maze and Frankie Beverly. Again, you got this. Dry your tears. Brush off the pain, the shame, the guilt, and heavy burdens of soaring secrecy between you and the enemy of your soul. With each step, you're becoming stronger. Those deep wounds are beginning to heal. The scab of feeling is taking place, not to erase your memory, but to remind you of what you overcame and is overcoming. Tell that little boy or little girl inside of you that it's safe to come out to play, because it's a new day, a fresh anointing from the Heavenly Father's hands to your heart. It's time to live, beaten, battered, tattered, and bruised. It's time to surrender from those suppressed wounds. Let's dance in the rain as we escape the pain to regain what was once made lame, leaving those secret childhood games in the dark places from which they came, like the bedroom, closets, backyards, or whatever else you were forced to keep what y'all did between you two, thinking that you know who would never believe you. No more secrets, no more shame, no more inaccurate diagnosis of you going insane. This is your lane to maintain. Again, you got this. Beaten, battered, tattered, and bruised, and yet you will not lose or become lost in those suppressed wounds. Suppressed wounds become suppressed secrets, which then creates a breeding ground for continual pain. Beaten, battered, tattered, and bruised, and yet you will not lose or become lost in those suppressed wounds. Be encouraged, everyone.
Ooh, powerful, powerful. Thank you. All of Kristina's information and links to purchase her books and her healing programs will be linked below. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and thank you, Marcella, for having me.